This is Irene. This is Irene with SaugaTalks. So today I am so privileged to have here with me Marcell Vollmer. It is a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you, Marcell, because I know that you are in an important role of being director and partner in Boston Consultant Group. And there you're advising clients, you're helping C-suite executives, you're helping companies to transform and look into their business models, their processes, I'm sure, right? Their practices, and bring them to the next level. Marcell, welcome to SaugaTalks.
Thank you, Irene. I hope I do this successfully. And yes, it's a very good description of what I'm doing.
Absolutely. It's a privilege to have you here. We're going to talk about tech innovations. What else? What else, right?
Awesome.
And we'll start with exciting things, okay? Marcell, do you like coffee?
I love coffee. So this is really what keeps me up and running in the morning. And therefore, I'm a big fan of an innovation which is provided by Nestle when they developed the coffee taps. I know there's a little bit also a topic about sustainability, about the aluminium, what they are using, but coffee is definitely a great thing. And in the morning, I love it. And by the way, just for you to know, it's a supplier-driven innovation, what Nestle did. And look now, it's a multi-billion-dollar business market, what exists globally.
This is the reason. This is the reason I want to discuss coffee with you, because I know you're a big fan. I've seen some of your videos, and the way you position coffees out there is extremely amazing because it's coming from innovation leader like yourself. Can you talk about what Nestle is doing? You mentioned sustainability, right? How do we marry innovation and sustainability today?
Oh, yeah, that's a very important topic. When you come up with something great, like we see now with electric cars, for example, you need really to think about end to end. What does it mean? The innovation on the one side is great, but also can you provide all the ingredients in a sustainable way? When you look at the lithium for the batteries as one example, how do they extract the raw materials? How does it really get processed until the car is ready, but also thinking about recycling at the end. And basically that's for all innovations, pretty much the same, including also the coffee example, what we had, thinking about providing coffee in a very consumer-friendly way by just having what you need for one nice cup of coffee, freshly brewed. I love it, it's wonderful, but on the other side also, if you do it in that way, is it now really sustainable what you do? And therefore, I like another innovation, what I'm using on a daily basis. They are now sustainable coffee taps, these small ones, which you have, and I use these. You can fully recycle them, and I use it for our bio waste to really make it fully compostable.
Fantastic, because I do use those a lot, I have to admit, and it's a good point, to kind of think about that. We're not only enjoying ourselves, right? We're doing something important for the planet, right? For the rest of the humankind. Absolutely. Have you heard of Clubhouse? I'm jumping from topic to topic because I'll give you the reason why. Have you been on Clubhouse so far?
Irene, of course, I have been on Clubhouse. I did already do some sessions, also interviews. By the way, why aren't we on Clubhouse right now and live? So probably, Irene, that's the next big thing for you, but definitely a great innovation. And it seems there are thousands of people joining every hour. It is growing very fast. And I think the adoption really increases dramatically right now.
It's a date, Marcell. It's a date. Next time we are in Clubhouse for sure. I love what they're doing there. Some sessions more productive, some sessions less productive for my interest. The reason I'm bringing it up, Marcell, is because it's only available for iPhone users. What do you think about that?
That's true. I think at the beginning they had to limit also the capabilities what they have with the servers, and so I think that's the reason why they started with iPhones, and they are growing. And I'm pretty sure Clubhouse as app will be available very soon on all devices in the future.
because some of my friends really feel excluded. That's not right. But with this, yes, in terms of sustainable productions, right? Where do you think Apple is gonna go?
Oh, I mean, I wish I could really know what Apple is supposed to do. What will be the next big thing? I think seeing what they are doing now, the AirPods, for example, they started from an iPod to iPod Touch, and basically this was the start. Afterwards, with the iPhone, and now seeing all the products what they have, it is amazing, the innovations. The latest one I heard about, and they have also a partnership which got announced, is the iCar, Apple iCar. So probably an electric car in a very user-friendly way might be the next big thing at Apple. But honestly, I'm reading a lot of news. I also share and post and tweet what I read. That's basically also what keeps me busy day and night on social media. But on the other side, predictions are difficult, especially about the future. It's not me, it was Winston Churchill, I think Niels Bohr or Mark Twain who said this initially. I couldn't agree more. So therefore, I'm not a fortune teller, and I can't say for sure what they want to do. But basically, I'm pretty sure they wanna come up with the next big thing. And also iPhones are not at the end of their life cycle. Seeing now the different technologies, the wearables, Apple Watch, for example, I mentioned AirPods, or what they have, the headphones, what they now have developed. So I think really there's a lot what's coming up right now. And what really is great seeing is also the willingness and the power of innovation really to transforming and changing things. And look at the smartphone. When Steve Jobs was on stage back in 2007, a lot of people were laughing about him. Oh yeah, another one coming up with an iPhone, and everyone remembers the one more thing when he pulled out the iPhone from his pocket. Look what it did. It basically changed our life, our private life, as well as our business life. Everyone is using a smartphone right now. It doesn't matter if you use iOS or if you're an Android user. Both have pros and cons, no doubt about. But basically, we are online day and night. Not sure if this is entirely a good thing, but we can work, we can read, we can listen to music wherever and whenever we want. And this is really something also what I personally enjoy. And I think a lot of people benefit from that and really going to the next level. Think about the innovation power in Africa. They basically jumped directly to mobile. Mobile banking, mobile business is absolutely common in Africa, and they are using phones for that. So they basically they bridged the step in between with the laptops, what we are used to, and directly decided, hey, let's go for something which we can use wherever we are. Very smart idea. And this is really where I think the digital transformation in general is definitely impacting all of us on the private side as well as in our business life.
Absolutely, you're stepping into important topic, right? All through 2020, we thought a lot about digital transformation. We talked a lot about digital transformation, and every company had to transform, like it or not, right? So what have you seen happening and how it defines our path forward?
Oh, I think the last year was definitely a big change. We are now almost exactly 1 year in the pandemic, coronavirus, COVID-19. Very unfortunate. A lot of people lost their lives. So that's definitely a bad thing. But on the other side, we also see kind of leapfrog on the digital transformation, jumping on calls, basically having virtual conferences, having video calls from morning until the evening. Therefore, it's already the Zoom fatigue, what people say, what they see as a risk. And honestly, I couldn't agree more. Being day and night in front of a tiny screen and looking into a camera and doing basically everything what was done before, also with the personal meetings. I think On the flip side, we definitely miss the social interaction. I miss it a lot. Meeting people, exchanging some thoughts, also brainstorming, and also meeting people I haven't met before. That's definitely something what I hope will come back in the course of 2021. When the vaccination really goes to the next level, and hopefully we get our normal life back. But we will also see there might be a big change. Number of flights might be reduced in the future. Business meetings, I think a lot of companies learned what's possible to do virtually. I see it by myself now, being a partner at Boston Consulting Group. We pitch for a project purely virtually. We basically engage with the stakeholders. We do all the negotiations, but we also deliver the project. I attended this week a kickoff meeting for a very important big project. And basically, it is totally normal that everyone is dialing in different time zones to really start something new. And after that, we could split into different working groups, discuss certain topics, coming back at the end, sharing some results, and defining the next steps, what we want to do. This is also something what really impacted the way how we work, and of course how we live, because less travel means also you're not so busy catching your flights, you're not under huge pressure. By the way, we talked about sustainability, also a topic, less flights, less CO2 consumption. On the other side, we see also the heavy impact on industries. I'm here in Germany, out of Frankfurt. You can hear it from my strong accent. I lived almost 3 years in the United States. I worked hard on my accent, but you see, I entirely failed getting rid of it. So that's also something what we see what's happening right now. So there's lots of changes currently, and industries are getting impacted. Germany still has a lockdown. They call it now lockdown light. Hairdressers opened this week, and in the next week there's also a plan to open more shops. But this is a fundamental change now, and it's almost exactly 1 year. I think it was March 17, 2020, when the lockdown started, and there were a little bit ups and downs. But we see now that still the numbers are very high of the newly infected people, not only in Germany, in Europe, I think all over in the world. It is definitely not over yet, unfortunately.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely true. So let me ask you one thing. In terms of adapting, right, remote way of working, virtual tools, these things almost happened overnight, right, with most of the companies. Let me ask you about some deeper transformations, because companies had to revisit their relationship with customers, with partners, with entire world out there. So what changes have you seen in business models, business processes? What kind of changes are happening out there?
I think that's a great question. And when we start really on a very holistic picture, the global supply chain definitely changed in the last year significantly. It is still global, it is still connected, but basically the end-to-end processes, the transparency needed on tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers, also getting the data in real time, understanding if everything is on time, the manufacturing, does it work? We have seen what a disruption in the supply chain can mean. The city of Wuhan, in the middle of the Hubei area in China, where the coronavirus started, basically after the lockdown, people understood how much it impacts their business. People also understood how many suppliers. They might not even know if it's tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 suppliers. If the business is no longer working, they can't manufacture anymore, they can't produce goods, what is shipped around the world. That's definitely on a global scale changing. And when you look on the global GDP, which is around 86, 87 trillion globally, 18 trillion is what the global trade is about that. So a significant portion what you see. And it got definitely disrupted due to the situation of the coronavirus. When you look now what companies are doing on the business model, This is something on the innovation side. We see different things happening at the same time. I think one positive element is I think the world has never seen before how fast it is possible to create a new vaccine. When you look at the time when the virus outbreak was in China, end of 2019, so it was very much condensed in one area, and then it started spreading around in the world. Companies work together, laboratories work together, scientists, universities, to team up, to look at any aspect, to find a vaccination as fast as possible. In the meantime, we have different ones. There's a European one, BioNTech. They are teaming up with Pfizer. There's Moderna in the United States. There's now AstraZeneca in the UK. So in different parts of the world. I don't want to go for an exhaustive list on that, but it's amazing seeing also different approaches, how fast innovations are happening. On the other side also, we learned a lot about the need for big data, for transparency, for analytics, that we really understand how does our supply chain really work? How is logistics connected? Could you ever imagine that in Europe, in the European Union, the borders are getting closed? So something, I'm grown up in a time where basically the European Union really became fully effective. Open borders everywhere, you could travel where you wanted, any point in time. This was really a big relief. No more traffic jams at a border control station. But now we have seen, oh wow, it's not only that there's a control, it is a lockdown. It is really stopped, that you can't travel from one country into another. Companies were totally surprised about that. And this is really where you see, wow, you need to understand also the insights about all the aspects of your supply chain, of your production, of your logistics, and distribution, what you do. When I got appointed as Chief Procurement Officer back in 2011 at SAP, it's exactly now 10 years back. There were two events which happened, and probably everyone remembers. The first one was Fukushima, and the second one was the flood in Thailand. I think we learned a lot. I was at a procurement conference at the time when Fukushima happened, or just after Fukushima happened, and I talked to a lot of CPOs. I was also fairly new in the role as being a chief procurement officer, and we had good discussions, and I tried also to ask a lot of questions to learn what are the priorities in procurement right now, what is it, what other companies do, that I can also get some insights which might be helpful for SAP's procurement transformation I signed up to drive. And a lot told me, hey, very horrible what happened in Fukushima, but fortunately, we are not so much impacted because we are not doing so much business in that area. It was interestingly learning a couple of weeks later when I met them again that basically they haven't had the full transparency about the tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers. Basically the suppliers of their suppliers, and they learned the hard way that they might be impacted by a catastrophic event they would not have imagined. And this is really where we see the flood in Thailand was the same for the hard disk. 70–80% of the global hard disk production takes place in Thailand. The flood disrupted this. So it was very fortunate, looking at risk management, that companies who carefully looked into the contractual situation, also thinking about risk mitigation strategies, were already very well on its way. And 10 years later, or 9 years later, when the coronavirus happened, companies learned also a lot in between. And in procurement, I can see it, that de-risking the supply chain definitely is a core priority. No one ever would have imagined that procurement and supply chain will be number 1 or number 2 priority on the list of the priorities of a CEO. We have seen this in the last 12 months on a regular basis, because there were many disruptions of supply chains. Therefore, it is a change also now how to make supply chains more resilient, to focus more on risk management, to monitor risk, but also on the other side, to look at the globalization. You mentioned the processes, the innovations, the business models. Companies looking entirely new on how they can de-risk the supply chain by also thinking about what are alternative sources, alternative suppliers I can team up. They're looking also in new business models. Companies started to produce face masks. They were never ever would have imagined doing that, but due to the fact that there was a high demand on face masks, companies started now producing that. There were companies in the automotive sector producing ventilators. Why? There was a high need, a high demand for ventilators, so they decided let's do something different. So we see on the other side also that there's a huge pull on driving innovations and also changing business model in a case of a crisis, in a catastrophic situation, what we have seen by the coronavirus.
The example you gave from 10 years ago, right? We were all so naive, we were all so arrogant, right? That those things only happen locally. That if I'm not in this region affected, I'm fine, right? And what pandemic taught us is that no one is exempt. No one can be safe until you really have the resilient strategy and until your business is really well situated. But I guess we learn, right? We humans, we adapt. In that way, you mentioned fantastic breakthroughs, right? In vaccine development, in transformations, local and global, right? We hopefully more resilient humankind because of what we've been through, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's so important also to think about how can we share knowledge, how can we collaborate globally, how can we also link this to products. When I moved on after Chief Procurement Officer, and I was very lucky that we acquired also 3 leading companies for source to pay, what SAP decided to do. But I moved on to a COO role, and I changed a little bit the perspective by now looking and understanding what can companies do in the future, what are priorities, by listening to the customer. I think customer experience is absolutely key. You should not try to sell your products to customers, you should provide solutions to customers. And that's what we learned and developed, for example, also a risk management tool to integrate it in procurement solutions. And I think this really helps. And interacting, collaborating, and learning from customers definitely makes sense, but also collaborating then with suppliers to think about the innovations. The coffee taps was a great example. What we already discussed. The iPhone, by the way, we talked about that. Isn't it an amazing example also when Tim Cook was Chief Supply Chain Officer prior to his current role as CEO at Apple, that he invented the Gorilla Glass with Corning, one of the key suppliers for glass production. He basically teamed up and we're thinking about we need a different display. Before that, and I'm a little bit older, as you can see, my gray hair starts growing. And by the way, the hairdressers are open, but unfortunately, I couldn't get an appointment so far. That's the reason why I look how I look right now. But when I grew up, basically phones, first of all, phones, when I really grew up, phones were like this. You had to dial one number and you turn back. And by the way, for the millennials or Generation Z, Alpha, whoever is listening to that, it was not the entire number. It was one digit, and you had to do it for everyone.
It was therapeutic. It was therapeutic, Marcel. Okay, when you that was fun. Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
It was, and unfortunately, it got a keyboard, a keypad that you could just click on the number. But basically, the first mobiles. When I got my first one, I did skip the Motorola the big one. But basically, I started with Ericsson GH172. This was such a big device, very heavy. The only thing what it could do was basically also dialing numbers, and of course, you could answer calls if anyone called you. But it was very expensive. Also, it was more than $2 a minute. Every minute you started, you had to pay $2. So therefore, the usage was also very limited on that. But the displays, they were so tiny, and basically they got, after 2-3 weeks, they started getting these tiny scratches. And think about what it does after 3 months, 6 months, or even 9 months. Usually they didn't last so long because there were always something what could break. At least my first mobiles definitely got broken a lot, and you couldn't really use the display for anything else except of seeing a number and dialing a number and answering calls. But basically, look how this changed right now. I'm doing this video with my iPhone, a wonderful display. What I have, I can type, I can speak. It translates my voice. This is really how the innovation could go in a fairly short time frame. When it started 2007, and now going 14 years later to that level, this is amazing what happened in between, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. We're in completely different world. We're talking about Industry 4.0 and we're talking about Industry 5.0. We're talking about completely changing the way, like you said, the way we work, the way we eat, the way we entertain ourselves, the way we connect with each other, right? Couple of words into the future. You mentioned you don't want to predict it, right? But some of the signs from out there. What about the way we earn and the way we spend? How about the commerce angle to it? How it's going to be changing, you think, in the next decade or so?
Oh, I mean, I wish I could predict the future, so it would be wonderful. Unfortunately, I'm not capable about doing that. But I think we definitely, and you mentioned Industry 4.0, it is definitely now that we see that machines are getting more and more intelligent. I'm a little bit cautious in using the term artificial intelligence. I know it's formally correct, and it means using algorithms, and machine learning is one subset of artificial intelligence. Nevertheless, it is not so much intelligence what we see right now, but what we can see already is how technology is helping us to augment our capabilities. And this is one key aspect. And I honestly believe that we will come more to a bionic world where machines and humans really nicely integrate. And not necessarily that we will see anything like Terminator or the dystophy, what we see sometimes in science fiction movies. I think more it will be that the machines are there to help humans to be more effective, more efficient, and also take on the work no one wants to do. I love having here my cleaning robot helping me to cleaning up my floor. Isn't this wonderful? It is a very stupid device, but it's a robot which is working at least for one single purpose fairly well. And this is where I believe when you see now what machines can already do, where robotics is as of today. It's amazing seeing the videos, and I'm sharing them on a regular basis, of Boston Dynamics, for example. The first robots couldn't walk and really were not very stable, and you would laugh at them. And sometimes it's funny seeing also what happened in the past and what they are capable to do right now. I believe, looking also in the future, that machines will more and more work independently according to the parameters and the boundaries we define. I think there are still a lot of unknown, not regulated. Self-driving cars is a very good example for that. We need also to define ethics for artificial intelligence. What is it what an artificial intelligence, a machine, a robot, if you want to say, can decide on its own, or what is it basically where no decision is possible to take, and a human needs to take this and needs to take also responsibility for whatever gets decided. This is definitely something also what needs to be defined, and we are at the beginning of this journey right now. But I believe we will really see a leapfrog on technology like we have seen in the past over the course of the time. I'm a little bit more realistic also on looking back, and not sure if you know the Gartner hype cycle. Gartner is always looking at all the buzzwords which are getting created. I mentioned a big bunch of them already in this session here right now, with artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics. We could now extend by Industry 4.0, IoT, blockchain, things like that. We need to be realistic also what it means really. What is the technology doing? And what is also the future perspective? What the technology can do? This is something also where we sometimes see disconnect.
We do want to finish with the augmented intelligence topic here, right? That us becoming better humans, because we know we need help. We need help with mundane work. We don't want to clean the floor as much as we need to clean those floors. I use one of these robots. It's amazingly dumb, but it's enormously helpful when it comes to repetitive work that I don't want to do myself. With that, a couple of takeaways, Marcel. If you could leave us with a couple of takeaways in a way that we're not going to predict the future, but we're going to know that we'll become better, right? The technology is working with us, not against us, don't you think?
We need to think about how can we really ensure that people have a chance also when we augment their work with machines. How can they really include this in their daily work? How can they also adjust and adapt to the usage of the technology for the better? You mentioned the cleaning as one example. I couldn't agree more. It's wonderful having that, but basically also there's a certain time and change process needed to do that. And this is definitely something also, be open to the change. This is definitely something what might help, and also look really into what does it do for you, and also how does it change your life, private life and business life for the better. And I hope it will do, and I hope we all will see a beautiful future by having machines, having a certain artificial intelligence in the future helping us to do our task, and hopefully also to have a better world we all want to live in.